I've got to. Well, I've got to do it now.
No, it's too long because it's like the 3, 2, 1 go exclamation point.
Hello, and welcome to the Pouch. Don't say anything or I'll do it again. Hello, and welcome to the Pouch, the podcast equivalent of having a child driving a forklift that aims to take a not-so-serious look at the week in Australian news and politics. I'm Greg. Well, those 3 separate school runs certainly took the shine off of owning some rapid antigen test kits. Savage.
And I'm Jake. Last week we talked about Cooper Pedy, and this week it's underwater. Who's going to be next? Far Wharton. On today's episode, we talk hacking, driving, testing, and so very much more, Greg.
And Jake, while we're as snug as a bug in this proverbial rug, I want to know why the Monday after 2 late nights of Australian Open tennis are not yet considered national holidays.
Well, look, it's very simple. You got the Melbourne Cup in Melbourne. That is a national holiday because thousands upon thousands of people around Australia they take that day off in order to watch the races, etc. But like only 10 people watch the Australian Open, even though it's in Australia. So it'd be a national holiday for 10 people. I think that's not economical, Greg. I think that it's just not economical.
Right. There's
I am one of the 10. I am one of the 10 people.
Well, so am I. And if you and I are one of the 10,
yeah,
there's 8 other people.
Yeah, I'd love to know their names.
Hmm.
I'd love to know their names.
Yeah, look, if you did watch any of the Australian Open Grand Finals over the last couple of days, send us an email because we really want to know who these rare butterflies are.
Yeah, well, 8 people really, because if it's exactly as you identified, if we're the other 2, there's only 8 other people around Australia who watch it. So
yeah, well, I'm extraordinarily tired. I mean, look, I need to really plan my weekends better around the Australian Open because I don't actually watch a lot of sport, but for some reason the Australian Open, gets me going. And good on Rafa.
Yeah, good on Smash Barty.
Yeah,
good old Smash Ash Barty. Yes.
I couldn't believe it. It was fantastic. So the first Australian woman since I want to say 1980.
Yeah. It's been 40 years. And she is now officially more marketable than any of the Hemsworths or Hugh Jackman put together. Like if you get Jackman and the Hemsworths and you put them into some sort of proto-human, they'd be very, very good looking, tall and muscular, but less marketable than Ash Barty. How about that?
Well, we get that a lot, Jake, here on the show. So, it's about time she started, being on par, if you will. Forgive my crossing of the sports puns with us here at the Pouch. Speaking of us being here at the Pouch, in the spirit of reconciliation and recognition, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're podcasting today, and we recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, Jake, you are absolutely right in your name joke segment.
Yes. Not a joke at all. Cooper Pedy's underwater.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spoke about Cooper Pedy last week being probably, we didn't mention it, but if you could choose one place on Earth not to flood, it would be Cooper Pedy because as those of you who listened to the first episode of 2022 would know, we spoke about the fact that Cooper Pedy is, I think we said 60% of Cooper Pedy's residents are underground. Literally, like as in no joke, they live underground.
Yeah, they literally they live in the old mining shafts of because it's a major opal producer. I think one of the world's largest opal producers, and so the old mining shafts that have been dug some time ago were turned into houses essentially, and some of them are enormous, some of them are not, but all of them are really luxurious looking things, really homely looking things, which is amazing considering it's under the ground.
Well, I think that Apple TV have done a reboot of it and called it Fraggle Rock, I think. it's a documentary about Coober
it's
Pedy
now
and the
Fragile
residents.
Rock. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That might be too soon. Now, the first, according to Nine News, the first RAAF flight carrying vital food and supplies to the flood-racked town of Coober Pedy in outback South Australia has taken off from Adelaide. The town in the north of the state has been cut off from the rest of the country, similar to Western Australia, after heavy rain damaged key roads and rail infrastructure. 6 RAAF flights carrying 20 tons of food, Jake.
It's a lot of food.
More than 15 tons of food. And supplies will land in the stricken region in the coming 2 days. The first left early this afternoon. More than 200 millimetres of rain is forecast to still hit the region, with ongoing flooding a possibility. A severe weather warning issued by the Bureau of Meteorology predicted thunderstorms with 6-hourly rainfalls of totals of between 40 and 70 millimeters.
And Greg, listeners at home, and indeed you or I, might look at those numbers of 200 milliliters or 40 to 70 milliliters or even millimeters, I should say, of rain, and you might balk at it, and you might say, well, geez, that sounds great. That sounds lovely. A little bit of a dusting on the garden, keep the grass growing, keep it nice and green. But because of, Coober Pedy is just incredibly flat, and the soil is heavily clay, so it essentially retains that water on the surface, leading to flooding anytime there is a massive influx of water.
Yes, it's very, very, very concerning. But the RAAF, I'm sure, are going to continue to look after that. Our thoughts, Jake, are also with the brain cells of the 800 anti-vaccination protesters who have taken to Parliament House today. Obviously, their brain cells died a little while ago. And they we need a little funeral for them or something like that. But anyway, 800 people today did head into the Canberra, the Parliament House. More than 800 anti-vaccination protesters marched from Federation Mall to Parliament House lawn on Monday, with some telling the Canberra Times they plan to stay. Australians from across the country gathered for the Millions March Against Mandatory Vaccination rally, also known as the 2022 Official Convoy to Canberra Terra Australis.
It's too long. It's too long a title. Nobody's going to get behind it.
That is catchy.
It's too long. It's too wordy. It's too all over the place.
The thing Mamva for short.
Mamva
2020 Octar for short.
For short. It's good that they shortened it to something more confusing than the original part of. Look, it's crazy. I mean, personally, I know some anti-vaxxers, and I don't think they're dumb. I just don't share their same opinion. But the crazy thing of these rallies, I really don't understand the rallies. Right, the premise is, I don't want a vaccine that's going to prevent a communicable disease that is communicable, particularly when you're in close confines with other people who potentially have it.
Yes.
And in order to show that I don't like the vaccine that's going to protect me against that virus that is communicable in those close confines, I'm going to gather together with 800 other, just to pick a number out of the air, other people in close confines, and we're going to share some air, and we're going to share some bugs. I really don't understand that premise of let's protest a virus by catching the virus.
I've got to say, I'm not actually sure exactly what their arguments are.
Well, they're anti-vaxxer.
I'm worried that I would be susceptible. You know what I mean?
To what? The
like their
COVID?
Arguments? Like I just like I'd be brainwashed.
So here's the thing. I
quite happy to be brainwashed by the government. I'm just worried that I would be,
by their position.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's the thing. So anti-vaccine mandates, Personally, I kind of agree. It's unfortunate that governments would need to mandate the taking of a vaccine for a virus that has caused the pandemic for the last, two and a bit years. It's unfortunate because people should just take the vaccine. If they're able to take the vaccine, then they should absolutely take the vaccine. I don't like mandates because it's forcing people to do something that they may otherwise do. So it's sort of putting people who don't like government control of things into an awkward position of being controlled, and particularly, but it is one of those things, right, where the professions that are mandated to get a vaccine are generally people involved in health and health related fields. So it is one of those things that I want to know that if I'm going into this place to have care delivered to me, that I'm having care delivered to me by someone who isn't sick or is less likely to pass it on to me.
That's right. So these 800 people were inspired by similar protests overseas, particularly in Canada, where truck drivers and supporters rallied against vaccine mandates and called for the repeal of all public health measures. The Canberra Times understands that protesters plan to stay in the capital until after the first sitting of Parliament for the year on February 8th. That's quite a nice little holiday, isn't it? It's a nice little break.
It's lovely for them. I wonder whether their employers are going to pay them to be there, just hanging out, just hanging out and protesting something that is it's crazy. This is the thing, Greg. Like we are now in the lead up to government measures being moot anyway. We're in the lead up to essentially COVID being endemic, of borders completely opening up across Australia, including the international borders.
Except
things like except Western Australia, exactly. Things like masks will likely continue for a while, whether mandated or otherwise. But I don't understand the arguments against those. Anyway, why try to get my head into the same position as these individuals?
Oh, no, you caught up. Okay, that's good. Speaking of what we spoke about last week when we were talking about Cooper Pedy and a few other things, Sarah Shamshiri got in contact with us. She sent us an email saying that Jake noted that the Australian government should not have granted a visa to Novak Djokovic in the first place. She wanted to mention that vaccination is not and has never been part of issuing a visa. Rules around issuing a visa and vaccination are defined by two different ministries. If the COVID vaccination rules are to stay, you can expect it to find its way into granting visas, but hopefully not. Sarah's parents have been granted a visa to come to Australia, but they were not able to come into Australia because even though they had been vaccinated, the vaccine that they used was not TGA approved. So they're not allowed to come in unless their third and fourth sort of, I suppose, booster shots are ones that the TGA accepts. So thanks for getting in contact with us, Sarah, and thanks for giving us that firsthand experience and for giving us permission to publish your story there. Really, really interesting. We know that Novak Djokovic was deported for his views on vaccination and for possibly being a public nuisance. So yeah, muddied waters, right? About what actually constitutes being able to come into the country, what constitutes being allowed to do what you're actually allowed to do in Australia, even if you're vaccinated, triple vaccinated, whatever. I know that Daniel Andrews is pushing not to call it a booster shot, but just to say that you're not actually vaccinated unless you have your third shot, which I tend to agree with.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and now there's some rumors around whether or not Novak Djokovic even had COVID-19 and a few conspiracy theories about, not necessarily conspiracy theories, but that he's investing into, different organizations who have solutions for COVID-19 that don't involve vaccination.
I think it's been confirmed
not actually being vaccinated. But anyway,
who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it? Hey, who would have thunk it?
Exactly.
Well, let's get into it, Jake. We've already covered a lot of ground. Goodness me, we've
covered so much ground.
We've covered vaccinations. We've covered Cooper Pedy. We've covered Sarah's story. Let's get into social media hacks. Scott Morrison's social media was hacked. Gosh, someone's got some interesting time on their hands, don't they, to be able to do that? What are all these photos of him just cooking barbecues all the time.
I
Goodness me.
know, right? In a nice business shirt and some board shorts and some thongs, I think, as well. Yeah. So Scott Morrison, the current Prime Minister, his WeChat profile. WeChat is a social media site in China. Was reported to have been hacked and rebranded to push Chinese propaganda in what earlier on in last week, intelligence chiefs were calling a blatant act of censorship. Morrison had 76,000 followers on China's largest social media website.
Very impressive.
Yes, but unfortunately, he was locked out of it since July 2021, and we're only hearing about it now, Greg. Can you believe that? Yeah.
So it's national security, Jake.
Yeah, it is. It has to go through multiple levels, multiple signatures, until, yes, finally it makes its way to the media. But it turns out that while there were plenty of people in Australia, including high up government officials, that were saying that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, were targeting our Prime Minister by seeking to shut down his ability to communicate with the Chinese Australians by banning him from the most widely used channel of communication in that community. It turns out that there was absolutely no evidence of hacking, according to the Chinese Communist Party.
So they're suggesting that Scott was just very pro-China there for a little while?
He's still. It's actually still very pro-China.
Yeah, right.
That's according to the Chinese tech giant Tencent that owns WeChat. But it actually turns out that it's a dispute over account ownership. The account in question, quote, the account in question was originally registered by People's Republic of China individual, and was subsequently transferred to its current operator, which is an individual with CCP ties, a technology services company, and it will be handled in accordance with the platform's established rules. So there you go. Definitely not a conspiracy, definitely not a hack, according to these officials. And he still can't post, though. Not that he was since July of 2021. So it's not as though people are, missing out on current day news. Yeah.
No, well, especially in China. Goodness me, they're right up to date there, aren't they?
They sure are.
Speaking of Chinese-run social media sites, Jake, TikTok warned Australian political parties against advertising on its platform. The Guardian reports that TikTok wrote to Australian political parties in November last year, warning them against attempting to pay influencers or engage in any other sort of advertising on its platform. Just months out from the next federal election, the letters were sent after Crikey reported a US-based marketing agency had emailed a campaign brief to a TikTok user offering $300 for the user to make and post a video of the theme of Scott Morrison is too slow and always late. When the Labour leader, Anthony Albanese, was asked on Thursday about the November report, he told radio station 6PR, gosh, he's getting around, isn't he? Elbow? He's really kicked into campaign gear.
Yeah.
6PR. That's
definitely
big.
Heard of that one.
Yeah, gosh. Anyway, speaking of people who are 10 listeners.
And they've definitely heard of the Pouch the podcast.
They've definitely, they probably didn't even know who they were talking to. Is this Billie Eilish? He wasn't familiar with it. Well, it is the first I've heard of it, but it wouldn't be too hard for people to post TikTok's videos along that theme, because that is a theme that is characterized by this government.
I love how he turns it around. Yeah.
That's right.
Look, if somebody from Labor encouraged someone to post a video saying that, that's just because everyone is already saying that. Okay? I love it.
Wouldn't be hard. Scott Morrison is too slow and always late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rolls off the tongue.
Always. He's never done anything. You don't need any incentive to encourage people to put things on social media, he said, of a partisan nature against the PM, against me, against Clive Palmer, against anyone. That's one of the facts of what happens with social media, said Grandad. While politicians are allowed to use TikTok, they are not allowed to advertise on the platform under TikTok's branded content policy. Unlike other platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, TikTok does not allow advertising for political content.
Yeah, I'm super glad that YouTube doesn't have that same predilection to not sharing political content, because I personally love that every time I try to open any YouTube video, regardless of the content, regardless of whether it was Seth MacFarlane's rant on Jimmy Kimmel or some other topical pop culture reference, it's always Clive Palmer standing up there against climate change, against vaccinations. They said it was the worst virus ever, and now people aren't dying. Yeah, that's because situations change because of vaccination. Anyway, I'm just so glad that YouTube doesn't have those same predilections.
That's right. Now, Jake, it would be remiss of me to bring up just a little side story here. The free-for-all, the copyright for the Aboriginal flag, transferred to public hands in $20 million deal.
Yes.
The Aboriginal flag will be free for all to use after the federal government acquired the copyright in a $20 million deal with artist Harold Thomas. The Aboriginal flag will be transferred to public hands for the first time, freeing its use for Indigenous community groups and sporting codes after the Australian government reached a historic deal with its creator to permanently acquire copyright more than 50 years after it was first flown. The $20 million taxpayer-funded settlement will end a long-running legal controversy surrounding its use by allowing the ensign to be painted on sports grounds, used on apparel such as sports jersey and shirts, on websites, in paintings and other artworks, digitally and in other medium without having to ask for permission or pay a fee. Goodness me. And this, Jake, this just goes along with that theme that we were just talking about, how the fact that Scott Morrison is always what is slow and late to the party, like 50 years.
Well, it's not just 50 years. Like the controversy started back in 2020, you may recall, Greg, when the AFL refused to pay the license holder to fly the flag or paint it in the centre circle in an Indigenous round of AFL in support of the growing Free the Flag campaign. It's great that it's happened, but yes, very slow, 50 years too late. And then, more controversy. He's too slow.
He's too slow and always late. Always. Yep. This is just another always one. The government will also provide an annual scholarship in Mr. Thomas's honour worth $100,000 for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students to further the development of Indigenous government and leadership.
That's
there you
great.
go.
Got a quote from Harold Thomas. I'm grateful that
they got a quote. It was $20 million.
Look, technically Wham Clothing owned it, but and they bought it off Wham Clothing. But a quote from Harold Thomas. Quote, I am grateful that my art is appreciated by so many and that it's come to represent something so powerful to so many. Quote, the Aboriginal flag design is my dreaming intertwined with my wife's family and mine, our ancestral belonging. The land, the landscape is indelible in my makeup. It courses through my consciousness and subconsciousness. Yeah. Lovely quote there.
That's right. And it is a very, very powerful image. And it's one that, is highly associated with Australia at the moment. So, very, very exciting stuff. I don't know. Maybe we could use it somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have to be respectful.
Yes.
That's the thing.
I don't know. We don't have either flag anywhere. So I don't know.
No, we got our flag, the Pouch the Podcast flag.
Do we?
Yeah.
Have you got one?
Yep.
From
Not in front of me. Not in front of me.
Where are you wearing it?
In the best place.
on
I don't
your
have
sleeve.
An answer.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, moving right along. I feel like I've done enough talking, Jake. Your turn. Shoot.
Yeah, well, the next story is that, in the theme of Scott Morrison being too slow and always late.
Well, that's the theme every day, isn't it?
Look, according to TikTok, that's entirely correct.
Those TikTokers, yes.
Yeah. Those TikTokers doing those Scott Morrison's too late Scott Morrison's too slow and always late dance. I can't replicate it because I'm not a dancer, but the dance, let me tell you, it's adequate for the purposes
of... Is it always like behind the beat?
Yeah, it is. It's off the beat they lack syncopation, Greg.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very upsetting. But yes, in that same theme, Scott Morrison he took to National Cabinet last week a push to let children drive forklifts in Australia as the nation battles through this COVID workforce crisis. And so, look, the long and short of it is that Morrison was what essentially he said. He was representing business needs, business wants, to enable 16-year-olds, people as young as 16, to drive forklifts. Apparently business owners wanted that, and the Prime Minister thought it was an appropriate way to address some of the workforce shortages, particularly, taking things off pallets and putting them onto other pallets, or taking them off pallets and putting them elsewhere. It's the only thing that I know about forklifts is that pallets are involved. But yeah, really interesting. The Australian Workers Union said that 1 in 6 workplace deaths are related to use of a forklift. But,
Well, I've got some statistics right here, Jake. Number of fatalities involving forklifts in Australia. Now, I've only got, I don't know why this brought this up anyway, but I've only got the 2003 to 2015 statistics.
Yeah. Well, there were no forklift incidents
between now. The worst year was 2006 with 9 fatalities associated with forklifts. 2010 there were 8. Then it went 4 and then 2. And 2013 there were 6. 2014 was 5, and 2015 was 4 fatalities.
There you go.
So you could expect that number to rise. If 16-year-olds are driving around willy-nilly on forklifts.
Yeah, I mean, look, on the other side of this, and I should say,
it's not just death, Jakes, either. There's accidents involving forklifts.
Workplace
820
accidents.
Between 2014 2015. 820 accidents involving forklifts.
It's a lot of accidents. Yeah. Look, I've mucked around on a forklift before, and it's a lot of fun.
Well,
until
you're responsible, Jake. You need a license.
Until you get fired because, or a ticket. Until you get fired because you've been irresponsible on a forklift. But
Now this caught them by surprise, didn't it? It caught the industry by surprise.
The industry said, according to Morrison, the industry wanted it, right? The industry badly wanted it. The industry were crying out for it. They basically
the forklift industry.
No business like stock people who
like
need
Amazon.
Stock taken to exactly, but also supermarkets and people like that. There was actually so many cries for young people to be able to drive forklifts that they put all of the requests for this stacked. They stacked them on a pallet, and it required several forklifts to move that pallet full of requests.
That'd have been a great political stunt, wouldn't it? Like a publicity stunt.
Would have been great.
Here's all the requests that we've had from business.
It would have been a classic Bob Catter stunt. Yeah, love it.
You don't have to be afraid of forklifts, he would have said.
Yeah,
We brought a forklift right into Parliament.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of this. Those opposites.
Here's my daughter driving a forklift.
Yeah. So a bit of a counterpoint, Greg, when I was 16, and you can still do this today, but when I was 16, I got my learning truck license.
Right.
And as part of that,
learn how to be a truck.
Exactly. Yeah, I got very good at it there for a while.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. I can see why you didn't progress.
Oh yes, you failed right from the beginning. I think you can get a number of tickets for operating heavy machinery at around that age.
Yeah.
You can become an apprentice welder, apprentice boilermaker, apprentice electrician at 16, apprentice carpenter. So look, workplace accidents and deaths are not just attributable to forklift drivers, and they're not just attributable to 16-year-olds, but it's one of those things. Maybe it is a great idea.
Impression, though, wouldn't you? Reading the headlines.
Yeah. But the hilarious thing was that the premise that we're going to replace we're going to enable 16-year-olds to drive forklifts to solve an immediate crisis, a crisis that we have right in front of us right now. Of course, not acknowledging the fact that you would need to recruit those people, train those people, get them into the workplaces to start driving those forklifts, which would take several weeks, if not months, which would put us well beyond the current immediate crisis. But that's fine. It was a great headline, distracted people long enough to remember that you still can't get a rat test.
Yes, a rat kit.
Yeah.
Going with rat kit.
Oh yeah, you want the full kit? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we got the full kit. Yeah, we got a bunch of kits now. Anyway, we're all over that.
Yeah.
Speaking of distractions, Jake,
Mm.
Scott Morrison did the Morrison government, I should say, did pledge $1 billion to protect the Great Barrier Reef during the week. Did you catch that one?
No.
It's a pre-election promise, a pre-election spend to protect Great Barrier Reef and save 64,000 jobs. Scott Morrison has pledged to spend an additional $1 billion to protect the Great Barrier Reef from being listed as in danger if he was re-elected at the federal election this year. So if you love the Great Barrier Reef, you also love the Morrison government.
Oh, well, more specifically, if you love the Great Barrier Reef not being listed as in danger, because to date, all of the current federal government's activities in protecting our reef from being named as in danger have not involved, improvements to the way that we tackle carbon pollution. It has not involved improvements to the way that we track and address pollution. It has not addressed any of the agricultural practices that lead to the bleaching of the coral around the Great Barrier Reef. What it has centered around is lobbying those countries that work with the Great Barrier, that work with the UNESCO heritage rating for the world,
Yes.
in order to change those ratings from at risk to in danger, or rather in danger to at risk.
Wasn't there some controversy a little while ago when the Morrison government pledged a certain amount of money to a company to save the Great Barrier Reef, and they'd never done anything like that before?
$40-50 billion. There was under Malcolm Turnbull. They established there was
it under Turnbull? Was it? Yeah,
it was under Turnbull. Yeah, it was an organisation, a not-for-profit that had absolutely no bona fides in that space, but had a number of fossil fuel executives on their board. So we definitely knew that stuff was going to get done. No tender process, no open tender process. Just here you go, have some cash, fix the reef. We'll do it.
Well, look, being slow to the party as he is, $1 billion a few years later, that's actually pretty good. 50 billion one year, 50 billion one year, $1 billion the next to fix it all up.
Yeah, look,
he's got a $49 billion savings under his belt.
Exactly. Yeah, look, in this case, Greg, I know exactly where you're going there. Too slow and always late was actually a very positive thing in this case. Yeah,
wasn't it a song by Goanna?
Who knows?
He also announced $50 million, little less, for koala conservation. But experts say more action is needed. The federal government has announced a new funding for koala conservation. However, the environmental experts say more action on climate change and deforestation to help the native species. Yes, that's right. That's the argument against all of this, is that he's not actually doing anything for climate change. Not necessarily true.
Oh, he's doing plenty for climate change.
Yes, touche. He loves it, but that's the irony, of course, is that you wouldn't need to be spending so much money on the Great Barrier Reef if you were to, stop burning all the fossil fuels. Anyway, so $50 million for koalas as well.
I think what should have been proposed, though, Greg, is that those koalas try to swim in the Great Barrier Reef, because that way they could aggregate spend quite a bit more money, potentially saving them faster, if not in a more cute way.
Yes, well, I was thinking that as well. I was thinking that maybe they might actually be finally going for that home amongst the gum trees. Really decking it out, having a nice, similar to the one I've got on my background today. That sort of patio look with the modern, block-esque type, whimsical.
Yep, I saw your kids out there earlier. They were jumping in the pool. Yeah, look,
that's right. From the roof.
But like we've got the Brisbane Commonwealth Games or Olympics, I can't remember which, coming up in
2032.
It's the Olympics. Sorry,
I've already
coming
booked
up in
my
2032. How great would it be to have an actual koala as the mascot doing a backstroke in the Great Barrier Reef? Like, how many tourists would that bring in?
4.
I think it'd be more than 4. I think it'd be well in the whereabouts of 10 to 12. So, like all of that investment in trying to change the behaviours of koalas, I think would be well worth the efforts, and that aggregate spend that you could spend on conserving koalas and the Great Barrier Reef. Look, I just don't think. I don't think the government has thought this through. I think that they really need. It's just another case of Scott Morrison being too slow and always late in really thinking these opportunities to improve conservation by aggregating things.
You're a smart man, Mr. Firewarden, and
Yep.
it'd be a privilege to. That was a big, loud bit of thunder. I don't know if you caught that one.
I did.
That really gave me a heart attack.
I did quite think that it was one of your children had fallen.
Had
jumped off the roof and missed the pool, hit the deck.
I was waiting for the roof to collapse then. Oh, goodness me. I don't know if anyone caught that. I'm going to secretly check the bomb site while I'm talking. Speaking of Mark McGowan. I think my family's just come down.
They've all come to huddle under your table.
That's all right. Goodness me. Anyway,
have you told them that they're interrupting a podcast?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm going outside to shake my fist at the sky now. Anyway, I can hear the children are going crazy up there. There's not even any rain around. I don't know what anyone's complaining about. Now, anyway, Scott, Mark McGowan. How good is Mark McGowan? And he, I don't know where. There's no thunder. There's nothing around. Anyway, the planned reopening of Western Australian borders to the rest of the country on February 5 will be delayed indefinitely. Premier and overall, Emperor Mark McGowan has announced, huzzah.
Tsar of Western Australia.
Mr. McGowan called a press conference a few weeks ago to announce the delay, which he said was due to the escalating health risks posed by the Omicron variant. Talk us through the details, Jake. What's he doing?
Well, the big thing was that the Premier was insisting that that Western Australia moved to a much higher target for vaccination prior to opening up the interstate borders. And look, the premise here is that they don't need the rest of Australia, right?
No, they don't. They have many billions of dollars in their kitty from their finances. They're all good. Yeah, they're great. Well, why wouldn't you? Why not?
Yeah. Except they've got a rampant Omicron. They've got a rampant Omicron outbreak, and rampant Omicron outbreak in Western Australia at the moment is very similar to It's very similar to Queensland pre the borders opening. But look, the nature of this thing is that they are afraid of COVID. It makes perfect sense. I know certainly Queenslanders, as a Queenslander who was afraid of COVID prior to the opening of our borders, and indeed being visited by the COVID fairy in the most recent couple of weeks, I totally get it.
Western Australia Health reported they did report 12 new local cases as of the 31st of January, the 24 hours.
It's a third wave, Greg. The third wave.
That's right. And 10 travel-related cases. Of the 12 new local cases, all are linked to existing clusters, including 7 linked to the nightclub cluster.
Yeah,
I like the way they call it the nightclub cluster, as if Western Australia just has like one nightclub.
Yeah, well, otherwise they would have named the club. So I think you're right, Greg. It is that
we're just going to the nightclub.
Yeah.
Are
you going down the club this weekend?
Yeah.
Oh, which one? Oh, the nightclub. I'm going to the nightclub.
There's only the nightclub. Anyway,
sorry,
yes. Look,
I thought you were talking about the pub. No, you're talking about the nightclub. Yeah, sorry.
No, some very concerning stories coming out of that as well. I don't know. We're moving along too fast, Jake. I think we covered that a little bit last week, maybe.
There's really not a lot of extra detail in that. They're waiting for a much higher vaccination rate in Western Australia before they open up the borders. Makes a bit of sense. They don't necessarily need to open the borders, but I've said this before. I've got a nephew that I've never met and wanted to meet over my holidays that just ended. But unfortunately, due to the rather stringent 2-week lockdown, if I decided to head over there, because Queensland, of course, is now a hotspot. Per the
everywhere, the whole of Australia,
exactly.
Is, the
with the exception of Western Australia, exactly. So it's just the way that it is. But
good on you. Why not? And yeah, look, you are listening to the Pouch Podcast, and if you want to check us out, you can go on to any of the social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram. Where I regularly post photos of Scott Morrison driving forklifts or watermelons that I've bought or something like that. Anyway, so you can check us out on Instagram. That's a fun one. And follow us on YouTube if you want to get notifications for when we go live, and you can catch the videos and all that sort of stuff. And you can watch our most popular video, which is, of course,
Greg sneezing.
Me sneezing. That's right. Over thousands and thousands of views. And we've contemplated, haven't we, Jake, starting our own podcast, which is just basically us sneezing and making coughing noises, because apparently that's what the people want.
Yeah, the Sneeze the podcast. That was the pitch. I mean, that was actually the beginning and the end of the pitch, because it didn't really need to explain it. The premise was that we start recording and we sneeze, and then that's the end of the podcast.
Sure. And you know what? Every now and again, and this is a true story, every now and again, I just get a notification on my phone which says, hey, that is a great sneeze. Like, thanks. Thank you, Bill from Colorado. Thank you for that comment. That's wonderful. Yeah. Would you like to check out the show?
It is always the Americans that comment on it. I do wonder whether, the nature of the American condition is that Americans love freedom so much that they refuse to allow their body to exhibit their natural
don't repress
reflexes.
The sneeze. Don't repress the sneeze.
I do seem to remember that it was no vaccines, no mask, don't sneeze.
That's right. The 3 S's.
Yeah.
Speaking of useless facts, Craig Kelly. Gosh, he's great. Yeah.
Well, easy.
Anyway, I watched a wonderful press conference with the Prime Minister the other day, and he was basically standing up there getting grilled about Craig Kelly, and he kept saying, I don't listen to Craig Kelly. You shouldn't listen to Craig Kelly. He's free to have his views, but no one should be listening to Craig Kelly. He's not contesting the next election. He's basically dead in the water. Don't listen to him. Stop asking me about him.
He is contesting the next election, by the way.
I thought he wasn't as an independent.
As he's under the Palmer United or the United Australia Party.
Right, okay. So he's gone over to Palmer United, has he?
He has indeed, yeah. It's actually the most entertaining. As I was saying earlier, like, I'm so glad that YouTube has enabled Clive Palmer and Craig Kelly to advertise together, because how else would I know that our governments have failed us because they promoted a vaccine that would prevent a communicable disease?
Absolutely. Yeah. But he has He has hijacked the social media inquiry to agitate over personal treatment. What did he do?
Yeah. Look, he's been he's very upset, Craig Kelly, because look, there were a number of social media organizations, including Facebook, or Meta, as they're now known, as they.
I like Meta. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. Who have submitted some time to a social media inquiry, and Craig Kelly's been banned by Facebook. He's been banned by Meta. He's been banned by. Sorry, you go.
No, I was just going to say, just to quickly reiterate that he is very anti-vax. He's very anti-vax for children. He's very anti-vax for everyone else. He's got these opinions about how you should treat COVID, and was very much on the what's that horse?
Ivermectin.
The ivermectin.
And hydroxychloroquine.
All that sort of stuff. So his views that were described as crackpot by Omar Khorshid, the head of the Australian Medical Association. Kelly said that forcing children to wear masks is child abuse. Advocated for
hydroxychloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine. I was determined to get that right too. Hydroxychloroquine to be used in Australia to prevent COVID-19. Some of these posts are removed by Facebook. Kelly has also posted conspiracy theories about Bill Gates requiring that and this is an elected official, requiring that the world population be vaccinated. He's given a speech in Parliament supporting his views on hydroxychloroquine. There we go. And posted on his Facebook page a call for the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Nick Coatsworth, to resign, which he later removed. Goes on and on and on and on and on. So that's just to give you some background over who we're talking about here. The crackpot Kelly.
In inverted commas.
Crackpot Kelly.
Yep. So, yes, this select committee on social media and online safety opened for submissions in December. It's that committee that's meant to be looking into the range of online harms that may be faced by Australians on social media and other online platforms. Look, Craig Kelly has been appointed to that committee. It may actually have been while he was previously in the Liberal Party, because he left the Liberal Party, I think, sensationally in around August last year, after his beliefs around COVID-19 vaccinations came to light, because he talked about them. But yes, while the inquiry has the opportunity to dive into the potential impacts of online harms on mental health and well-being of Australians, and the extent to which algorithms are used by these platforms to permit, increase, or reduce these online harms, this last week they had a hearing, and it was overshadowed by Kelly questioning why he and those that agree with him, the 10 other Australians, are being banned from those social media platforms. Exactly. No, they're not the same people, Greg.
Oh, okay.
They are definitely not the but it's really, really quite interesting. So, as I said, he's been banned by Facebook. He was banned by Twitter. He was banned by a number of different platforms because of his COVID misinformation. It's Facebook, Twitter, I think, well, certainly not YouTube, because they do pay for comment, but, a lot of these social... Well, yeah, exactly. Especially if you're from the CCP and align with their views.
MySpace.
But no, MySpace would not take it. They would not take it. It was not appropriate to them. But because they have those social media organizations have, certain views that, align with science, and based in reality, they took hardline stance against people whose views sort of didn't, align with reality and public decency. I just quite like doing that, so wanted to do it one more time. But because they disagreed with the just tremendous amounts of misinformation, during a time where information was incredibly critical to get it right, those social media platforms decided to block Craig Kelly. So the fact that he's been appointed to this very important committee, this committee that was set up to ensure that social media companies are doing the best that they possibly can to ensure that those who use their platforms are being well treated, are being supported, and aren't directly impacting on the mental health and well-being of Australians. And the fact that he hijacked that committee to specifically talk about the fact that he was banned by some of these social media organizations for specifically spreading misinformation, I think, Greg, is a dereliction of his duty and an absolute travesty against the Australian people. Now, probably get re-elected, though.
Yeah, and we were going to go in solidarity with Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, weren't we, Jake? In taking ourselves off those social media platforms, or taking ourselves off of Spotify and things like that. If Craig Kelly gets re-elected, I don't know if we've got quite the same pull as Neil Young and Joni Mitchell, who are taking themselves off of Spotify and
I reckon we probably do
because of Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, yeah, I reckon. Look, I reckon we probably get as many listens as Joni Mitchell and
as Neil Young, at least, anyway.
And Neil Young in current day Spotify land. There's probably a good chance that our audiences, while not the same, it's not the same 10 people, but it is roughly 10 people.
I reckon 10 people, yeah. I reckon it's the same 10 people, Jake. Watch the tennis. Stay up late, watch the tennis, listening to Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. And the Pounce the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, look, it's an eclectic mix. We never said that those people weren't cultured.
No, absolutely not. Well, that's right. They might be the right ones. Everyone else is wrong. The other, however many billion people there are in Australia. How many people are there in Australia?
On last count, it was 24 million.
24 million, yeah. We had
24,200.
25.69 as of 2020.
Was off by a million. I would say though, I personally prefer Joe Rogan to Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. Yeah, it's not for any other reason that I just love when Joe Rogan gets angry and he turns tomato red. It reminds me of Barnaby Joyce, and I'm like, you can't. He is my favorite politician by a country mile, and that is how he counts miles, of course, only in the country. So
yes. That's right.
Yeah, look, Joe Rogan basically is. I've never seen Joe Rogan and Barnaby Joyce in the same room, so
no, I haven't either. It'd be a wonderful interview, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say I could be convinced that they are basically the same guy.
Yeah, I might actually listen to that episode.
Yeah.
Dear. Well, anyway, I think look that we've covered a lot of ground, Jake. We've covered a lot of ground.
All of the ground. Actually,
I'm pretty sure we have covered all of the ground. We've covered Cooper Pedy. We've covered the RAAF going into there. We've covered anti-vaccination protests at Parliament House. We've covered the Scott Morrison's social media being hacked. We've covered the Australian flag being handed back to the people with some little asterisks there. The forklift story. We've covered how Mark McGowan is extending his reach beyond February 5th there, and about Craig Kelly hijacking social media.
All the ground.
Goodness me, I feel like we've covered a lot.
Catharsis? Do you feel catharsis?
I certainly feel a rumbling. Whether it's
the thunder.
Whether it's Dorito o'clock or
or lightning just shot over your head,
yeah, I certainly felt that. Goodness me, that was big. Anyway, we might cut that out and put that as a separate YouTube video. Maybe we get just as many views as the sneezing stuff.
I think you genuinely should.
Yeah, genuinely. I genuinely will. I genuinely might just do that. Threaten me. But yeah, like I said, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on any of the social medias. We'd love to hear from you. You can also email us at thepouchthepodcast@gmail.com, just like Sarah Shamshiri did. And we will definitely read it out because, we don't get a lot of emails. So just email through your thoughts, your views, your opines, and we'll definitely have a read of those. What do you think, Jake? Where should people go and what should they do?
Look, once they are done,
this is the polite version. Yes.
Once they are done sending us an email to say that they have nothing to say, because I feel that it's important that if you have nothing to say, but you listen to a show, that you tell them, you write to them, you take the time to say, "Hey, I listened to you, but I have nothing to say." I feel that's important. Yeah. So once you've sent us that email, I think it'd be great if you could hit the subscribe button and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and other modes by searching for The Pouch the Podcast. I left out YouTube, but I shouldn't have.
That's fine. Yeah. Well, Jake, thank you very much for talking to me about all of those things and very much more this week. And I hope everything's going well in your house. I know that kids are going back to school very soon. What's happening in Queensland there? Are they going back to school like this week, next week?
So I'm okay. My daughter.
I don't know where my soft toy is, but I'm fine.
My daughter's in grade 12, so
yes.
she actually started last week.
Right, online.
So she's got another week of online learning, and then back on the 7th of February. Very exciting.
All right. Well, best of luck with all of that. Best of luck to all the parents out there. Just getting their kids back off to school next week, and look forward to hearing your stories and more. I'm off to save my roof, apparently.
Yes. Keep the thunders off them.
Keep the thunders off them. All right. Peace.
Peace.